Hey, what's up guys? Jake with Legacy 4x4 here again, and today we are actually back working on the Bronco. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything major to it, but I am. So anyways, we're going to work on the Bronco today, and it's going to be another little fabrication project. So for today, we're going to build some side steps for it. So the Bronco's not too terribly tall, but it is a little tall, it's a little high off the ground. So I want to have some side steps, you know, something that makes it a little easier to hop into the cab, and then when I get the roof rack and all that kind of stuff, to climb up onto the roof rack for. So we're going to do some really simple tube side steps on this. For this, because it's side steps, it's not structural, it's not a roll cage or anything like that, I am just going to use a regular 1.5 inch outer diameter pipe, the kind of stuff that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. I chose to go this way because DOM is ridiculously expensive right now. So instead of using a bunch of DOM at the cost of like $400 a stick, I would rather use two 10-foot pieces of pipe at about $90 a stick, which is substantial savings over DOM. So anyways, for this, it's going to be a pretty simple little build. We're going to start by bending these two pieces of tube down to make the actual hoop. We'll do a center support brace on it, and then we will do, I'm thinking, some dimple dyed, you know, nice little top coat step section. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so if you guys have seen me do tube work on this channel before, I have done a lot of it. I've built a whole bunch of cages, a bunch of rock sliders, tube attachments, just a bunch of stuff. The way I like to do it, I've got my Rogue Fab M600 tube bender, which is a super popular tubing bender, and I'm a huge fan of it. I've had it for years, and it's held up really well, aside from the one time I messed it up and I broke part of it, but I fixed it, so it's all working good enough now. Anyways, I also use BendTech Pro, so I didn't take the camera inside because it's a super simple bend, but I did write down the different dimensions we need. So BendTech gives you a cut length that you cut the stock to, and then it gives you the locations of your bends and then the degree of those bends. So for this one, this is about a 68 1/8 of an inch long piece of that pipe. And then I've got one bend at 24 inches and one bend at 46 inches roughly. So those are going to go into the bender. They're both going to get bent to 90. So my Rogue Fab, actually, truthfully, with one swing of the ram, only gets to about 88, 89 or so. So we're going to be just shy of 90, but it'll be close enough for what we're doing here. I don't have a whole lot of spring back on the Rogue Fab, so when it gets all the way to that full stroke, like I said, it'll be 89 degrees, but it'll be pretty close to 90. Anyways, so this is actually the second slider. I've already got the first one built. I built the whole one off of camera, because I was kind of just messing around with it, trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. So I will take you guys through the process for building the second one. Alright, so over here, we've got our clamp blocks. These are what go into the Rogue Fab. So I have two of the 1.5 inch clamp blocks and two of the 1.75 inch clamp blocks, the two most common diameters of tube that I use. So when I'm doing like two bends like this, it makes it super easy. So I set it up on the fab table, I make sure that everything's perfectly level, and it makes getting the bends to be on the same plane really easy. And then same thing if I'm doing something that's bent on a different plane, I have the little measurement tool and the little angle finder, all that kind of stuff, and I use the table as my base so that I have a solid base to work off of so I know where zero is. Anyways, this is super simple because this is just a hoop. So I got the two clamp blocks on here at the right lengths away from the start of the tube. I'm going to go bend both of these to 90, and then we're going to get it onto the table here. We've got one center support to make for it, and then we've got the top plate to make for it. So let's go take this over to the bender and get this thing bent up. So with the hoop, you know, the actual bent portion of this finished, now I want to do a horizontal kind of like cross member in it. That's going to provide rigidity. It's also going to give me a spot to put a plate so that I can have an actual step that's not just a piece of tube. So a little upgrade. Like the Commando just has a piece of bent tube and that's all it has. It's super simple. This I wanted to have an actual step, and I wanted to include some dimple dies because it's fun. Anyways, so now we got to make the cross member, that little cross piece. This is super simple. You just cut it down. You know, you measure. I measure halfway into the tube, cut it down to that length, and then when I notch out half of the tube. So I've got another Rogue Fab tool here. I use my Versa Notcher from Rogue Fab as well to do all of my tube notching. So I just put a new hole saw bit on this when I started this project. And when you have a brand new hole saw and you have enough of tap magic, it cuts through tube and pipe super easily. Anyways, so the way this works, like pretty much all hole saw based tube notchers are all the same. They have slightly different mechanics, slightly different designs, but they basically all do the same thing. You've got a big drill, you've got a bearing and a rod, and then you've got a hole saw bit at the end of it. You clamp on the Rogue Fab ones, you clamp the tube in back here using this little knob, clamp the tube in. Like I said, I go halfway on the hole saw bit is how I measure it, so that when I get to fitment, I get a really nice bite in the tube that's about halfway up the length of the tube or the width of the tube, which makes it a really clean, really nice place to weld to and gives you plenty of surface area for the welds to contact. So anyways, I'm gonna cut this piece of tube down, throw it into the Rogue Fab here, and notch out these 2 notches that we need, and then we're gonna weld it up onto the hoop. So let's get to that part next. So you can see down here, this is what this looks like with that cross member in it right here, and then you can see the main hoop as well. Now we've got to make the actual step portion of it. So for the step portion, I have still a ton of 16 gauge drops, so I'm going to use 16 gauge for it because that's good enough. There's only about a 3-inch gap here, so it's really not a lot of gap that it has to cover, so 16 gauge is enough for this, considering the fact that it's supported by 2 different pieces of 1.5-inch tube or pipe. So we've got a sheet of 16 gauge here. I'm going to measure it out, and basically we're going to cut a piece of 16 gauge that is the same size as this. I'm just going to plasma cut it by hand. It'll take just a couple seconds to plasma cut that out by hand. And then we've got to go through and we're going to put in 5 holes. I'm also going to probably just plasma cut those because it's quick. So I'll just plasma cut everything real quick and then throw it in the dimple die press in the 5 different dimple dies, and then weld it onto our work surface here, and then that's going to complete the slider. Then we just got to weld it onto the truck. So let's get to measuring and plasma cutting out this 16 gauge. So I didn't show you guys welding them onto the truck. Originally I was going to do bolt plates or something like that, But on the driver's side especially, the e-brake runs along the outside of the frame apparently. I obviously didn't check before I started building all this stuff. So Matt convinced me to just weld them to the frame, which is fine. That's how I do a bunch of rock sliders. Pretty much everything of Matt's is just welded to the frame too. It works. It is what it is. You just can't take them off, but that's fine. So those are done. I didn't show you guys any of that welding because it's already a huge pain to weld overhead underneath the truck like that, and trying to get the camera under there and keep the camera safe from the weld splatter is just not worth it. So I got them done. Let me show you guys what they look like, and then we'll close out this video. All right, so this is the driver's side, obviously. The paint's already been drying, so for paint I use Rust-Oleum truck bed coating, like bed liner. That way it gives it a nice, like a textured surface since it is where you're going to be stepping. But you can see that that is what that looks like. On the underside, they're just welded to the frame with a couple of gussets. And then there's a couple of tack welds up here that hold it to that body panel to give it some additional rigidity. But that is what those look like. Still need to fix that rust hole. So while we're on this side, I didn't do this on camera, but the Bronco got a new wood steering wheel, and I painted all the rest of the dash trim pieces black, and I got the Husky floor liners in. So we got all of that stuff done. I still have to put the rear view mirror up there. I have the mount in, I just haven't actually installed the mirror yet. And that's what that's looking like. I should have the blanket for this pretty soon. When I go up to Matt's house next week, I'll pick that up. And I haven't done anything else back here yet. But that's what the inside is looking like. Still have to fix this door trim panel. And got the license plate mounted. I do want to build a license plate frame. I just haven't decided what that's going to look like yet. And it's kind of dark on this side of the shop, but that is what passenger side looks like. Obviously the doors work. It's below the door jambs, so yeah, there they are. Alright, so coming up next, let's see, I've got a couple of things on the docket here. I need to do exhaust, so Jesse cut it right behind the cat, so it is kind of loud. Not my style anyways. So I've got a new muffler, it's sitting in my truck right now. So I have to do exhaust. I'm gonna build a roof rack for it, and I just got my air fan. So I'm doing like an RV vent fan on the hardtop, kind of in the center of the back section there, so that when you're off-road and you're camping in the back of it, if you don't have the windows open or something, you can actually have airflow, or you can have more airflow with the windows open. So I've got that. That's going to eventually get hooked to a secondary electrical system that's going to run all of my auxiliary stuff that's not truck related. So I'm going to install that though, because I need to have it installed so I can do the roof rack, and then I'll do the electrical system later. So let's see, we got exhaust, we got roof rack, got a couple small things that need to get done, and I think that's about it for now. Might make a ladder to get onto the roof rack. So a couple more tube projects coming up. But anyways, this is it for this one. This is a short one. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope y'all like this. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.